everyone, you're watching another episode of Xplained with me. US President Donald Trump has imposed a new 10% global tariff to replace one struck down by the Supreme Court, calling the ruling terrible and lambasting the justices who rejected his trade policy as fools. The president has unveiled the plan shortly after the justices outlawed most of the global tariffs the White House announced from last year through this year. In a 6-3 decision, the court upheld that the president had overstepped his powers. The decision was a major victory for businesses and U.S. states that had challenged the duties, opening the door to potentially billions of dollars in tariff refunds, while simultaneously injecting new uncertainty to the global trade landscape. However, speaking from the White House, Trump indicated that refunds would not come without a legal battle, saying he expected the matter to be tied up in court for years. Let's listen in.
They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. I said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years.
But what is this court decision? The court battle was focused on import taxes that Trump unveiled last year on goods from nearly every country in the world. The tariffs initially targeted Mexico, Canada, and China before expanding dramatically to dozens of trade partners on what the president billed as Liberation Day last April, soon after taking the office. The White House had cited a 1977 law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also known as IEPA, which gives the president power to regulate trade in response to an emergency. But the measures sparked outcry at home and abroad, especially from firms facing an abrupt rise in taxes on shipments entering the U.S. and fueled worries that the levies would lead to higher prices. Arguing before the court last year, lawyers for the challenging states and small businesses said that the law used by the president to impose the levies made no mention of the word tariffs. They said that Congress did not intend to hand off its power to tax or give the president an open-ended power to junk other existing trade deals and tariff rules. The decision to strike down the tariffs was joined by the court's 3 liberal justices, as well as 2 justices nominated by Trump himself. Those are Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch, whereas 3 conservative justices, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Samuel Alito, dissented. At the White House, Trump said he was absolutely ashamed of the Republican appointees on the court who voted against his trade policy. President Trump then went on and launched a sweeping attack on both liberal and conservative members of the court, expressing his belief that the decision was influenced by foreign interests, though he provided no evidence. The ruling, which declared that presidents do not have inherent authority to impose tariffs without congressional approval, was a blow to President Trump's trade agenda. Despite the setback, he vowed to continue imposing tariffs through other methods. Trump even questioned his own Supreme Court appointees, Justices Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, calling their votes an embarrassment and taking aim at their families. Let's listen in.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you.
Now, how has Trump responded? Trump signed a proclamation imposing the new 10% tariff under a never-used law known as Section 122, which gives the power to put in place tariffs up to 15% for 150 days, at which point Congress must step in. It will go into effect on 24th of February. The order states a variety of exemptions, including certain minerals, natural resources, and fertilizers, some agricultural products like oranges and beef, pharmaceuticals, some electronics, and certain vehicles. For many of the categories of exempt goods, the order is broad and does not specifically say what items might be exempt. Canada and Mexico will retain an exemption under a North American Free Trade Pact, the USMCA, on tariffs covering a vast majority of goods. A White House official said countries that struck trade deals with the US, including the UK, India, and the EU, will now face the global 10% tariff under Section 122, rather than the tariff rate they had previously negotiated. Furthermore, the official has added that the Trump administration expects those countries to keep abiding by the concessions they had agreed to under the trade deals. Analysts expect the White House to also consider other tools such as Section 232 and Section 301, which allow import taxes to address national security risks and unfair trade practices. President Trump has previously used those tools for tariffs, including some announced last year on sectors such as steel, aluminum, and cars. Those were untouched by the court ruling. Now, Justice Kavanaugh has warned of a substantial multi-billion-dollar refund. Justice Brett Kavanaugh has warned in a dissenting opinion that the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling striking down Trump's tariffs could trigger billions in refunds to importers. Has warned the decision could lead to a messy, costly refund of billions already collected and create uncertainty in trade relationships with countries such as China as well as India. Now, the court's decision could lead to significant consequences, including billions in refunds to importers who paid the IEEPA tariffs, even if some have already passed on the costs to consumers. However, the court did not provide a clear answer on how to distribute the estimated $175 billion in refunds. Tariffs are usually collected by importers who pay a bond to the Customs and Border Protection Agency. When the final tariff determinations are made, excess payments are refunded. However, with more than 1,000 lawsuits filed seeking refunds, it could be a long and complicated process. Importers may have to sue individually in the Court of International Trade to get their refund, and small businesses could face particular challenges with legal fees. While the government has tracked tariff payments and improved record keeping, there's still uncertainty about how long it will take to distribute these refunds. Some businesses are even selling their claims to Wall Street investors, hoping to get a piece of the potential payout. The process could take years, and the impact on small businesses could be significant. That's all for this episode of Xplained. Stay tuned as we bring you more in-depth insights and start